Hello and welcome back to another episode of How This Indie Dev, a game developer podcast where I get to interview cool developers about their life and their work. Today I'm joined by my friend Matt Hackett. He is one of the few developers that I know that is actually also an accomplished author. And I initially met him when I made a YouTube video reviewing his book, How to Make a Video Game All by Yourself. This is a great conversation, and we talk about stuff like how to survive for years as a solo indie developer, the benefits of pursuing your creative interests, how to best reach an audience for your games, the best way to set up a game project, and much, much more. I had a great time chatting with Matt, and I think you're all going to really enjoy this one. Yeah.
I forget who it was, but someone recently was like, there's a lot of developers out there who have lots of interesting things to say and interesting perspectives, but they don't have the riz, right? They don't have the voice, or they don't like their looks, or they don't feel charismatic, and a lot of people they just don't want to be perceived, which I get in those modes for sure, where I'm like, I don't want anyone looking at me right now. I feel like a mess. Like I feel like a joke right now. And some people feel that way all the time. And other people are the opposite, where they're like, put the camera on me. I need to live stream 12 hours a day or whatever.
Right.
But it's kind of a shame because a lot of the people who don't have that desire to be in front of the camera have a lot of good things to say.
Yeah.
And also like the quality, like it matters more that it exists. There's that meme going around, you've probably seen, there's like the half circle, it's like roughly drawn, and then there's the perfect circle. And it's like, we're game developers. We're not necessarily trying, like, you know what I mean? Like, good for you for doing the podcast. Like, I've got a lot to say about like just just having a podcast and doing a podcast can shove your career forward in ways you don't even know are going to happen. Like legitimately, it's such a good career move to have a podcast, right? Mm-hmm. But it is a ton of work, and it's a lot of like, I'm terrible at audio, and I can't believe it because like I specialized in audio in college, and I'm like, why am I so bad at this? I'll get like pops, and I'm like, what am I struggling with here? But it's hard. It's like the hardware and the tech. Like this camera was like $500 or something. Like it adds up, but worth doing. Obviously, it's worth doing. That's why you're doing it right now. Good for you, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. You are somebody to aspire to as well, because you are somebody who literally does it all. I'm trying to think of something that you don't do, because you, like, in my mind, you're like primarily a game developer, but you're also like an author. You have a podcast. You send out a newsletter. You sell online courses. What else? Did I miss something? I feel like I'm missing another big one. But anyway, you are like somebody who, you're like the one-man band, I feel like you're marching around with like a big drum and like playing the harmonica and dancing, and I'm like, dude, how do you juggle all of it? It's insane.
I really appreciate that. I think the thing is that like it's sort of probably the like, jack of all trades, master of none situation. And also like because I'm doing so much, like I started my company Valadria 3 years ago, and I made one right decision, which was right away I launched a product, which was my book, How to Make a Video Game All by Yourself, right? But 0 games. What am I doing? I started an indie game studio, and kudos to you, 2 games. You have twice as many, or infinitely more games than I do.
Yes.
So like, my goal of having a successful game studio is probably hindered a bit by me doing the newsletter and promoting my book and writing another book and all this other stuff that you say, like the one-man band stuff. So like, I love doing it, and I think part of the reason I do that is because I'm just like easily distracted. I'm very like, oh, shiny, like someone will throw, and I'm like, what's over there? And it's like, shouldn't you be finishing your game? And I'm like, probably, yeah, probably should.
Yeah.
Whoops. But I appreciate that.
Well, you're also an interesting person to follow though too, because I try and keep my sensors up to people that are doing stuff in the indie dev sphere, and like, and so I pay attention to a lot of different people, but you are really interesting to follow because I feel like you, and I don't mean this as a compliment, so don't take it as a compliment. I'm just stating facts, but I feel like what you create, it has like quality to it, like you are able to put out things that look good and are polished, and like as an indie developer, I want to consume it. Your book is great, your art is great, the games that you're working on look great. I like your podcast, like all of the things. I'm like, you do it all well, and so I think that makes you a nice person to follow online. But one of my top questions that I have is that how do you like juggle your time? How do you figure out what takes your priority? Because you know you're lamenting about how you haven't launched a game on Steam yet, and I know that you've been putting a lot of time and effort into Witchmore and now Pixel Washer, and I know that there's like a lot of stuff going on, you know, into the development of these projects. But yeah, how do you juggle your time with all that, and how do you prioritize it?
It is a struggle for sure. And I think I'm a little bit selfish because part of the reason that I am an independent game developer is because it's what I want to do. And that comes from this selfish, like every day, I'm really doing the things that motivate me, right? And sometimes the priority of whatever projects you have going on will reveal themselves to you. Like it'll just jump up and get in your face and be like, this is what you have to work on today. And that's what I'll work on then. But if that's not the case, if I've got enough time, I will jump off into the woods and just run off in a direction, kind of like how I play Skyrim or any Elder Scrolls game. I'm like, there's quests to do. I'm just going off in the woods today because that's what I want to do. And it's a little dangerous because it's one of the reasons I haven't yet launched a game under the Valadria banner is because I will run off and do like podcasts and I'll write another book and stuff because I like to just do whatever creatively pulls me, right? And that's like my main motivation for doing all of this. And I need to remind myself that sometimes, right? Is because like any of us who are doing this indie game thing could go get a job that pays better and is more reliable and has health insurance and other benefits like a 401k and stuff that we just don't have now. Like the opportunity cost reveals itself to me sometimes, but it's just a reminder like I'm here to do what I want. And that's my primary motivator. And the fact of the matter is I just have a million interests. Like I want to make movies. Like I haven't touched that, and maybe someday I hope I get to the point where I can afford to, time wise and financially and stuff. But it is a consistent struggle for sure, and I don't think I'm particularly good at it. Like I definitely lack some focus. Like if I had the ability to choose my own traits, like if I could make my own Dungeons and Dragons character sheet, like my stats are what they are, but I would like reduce some. I'd be like, can I focus a little more, please? Like the podcast, as we were talking about earlier, I think podcasts are so valuable and like they're underrated. I know they get made fun of a lot. People are like they're cringe or whatever. I don't care. It's one of those areas where I'll be like, you need to do them, and I will push them hard. I think this is a great thing to be doing. But other stuff like I really feel passionately about my newsletter. I think it's so important to grow your own audience and own, like I have these email addresses that I have access to, and no social network can take away that from me or change their algorithm and remove my access to people who hit that button and wanted to follow me and stuff like that. But a lot of times I can't really justify, like, have I seen the benefit and the growth from the newsletter? Like, I can't always say that, but I kind of go forward with just like blind faith of like everything I've read and everything I've seen shows that this is a strong thing worth putting the time into, and you need to beat that drum like once or twice a month. And so that's a huge motivator for me to actually continue that. And I think if it wasn't for that, by now I probably would have dropped something like my newsletter, which you can subscribe to at valadria.com, VLALDADRIA. Anyway, so there's always like things I want to pick up and more that I want to do, but I think that like any game dev who can just focus on the games is probably better off than someone like me who, to be perfectly honest, is a little scatterbrained.
Yeah.
So it's hard. I don't recommend it to everyone.
Yeah. But I almost feel like you kind of need to do it to survive in like what it takes to be a full-time solo indie game developer. Like I feel like you, unless you're gonna make like a breakout hit, but even then it's like you need to market it unless you just sign with a publisher and have them do the marketing, which probably isn't a great idea. But when you say you like you go off into the woods, you know, and you just follow your heart's desire for the day, are you content with that? Have you just like realized like this is reality and this is my workflow and I'm okay with that? Or are you kind of like, I shouldn't do it. I should be like more disciplined in this area. And is it a struggle, or do you just embrace it?
I think I'm old enough now. You can tell I got a little gray in my beard. I am who I am. And as much as like I was saying earlier, I would love to restructure, you know, and in a lot of games, you can like redo your character, you can reclass, You can readjust your stats. I can't do that. I am just happiest when I feel untethered by the parts of life that want to tether you. That's one of the reasons I like being an indie game developer is like, I don't have a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday situation. I did that for over a decade. And a lot of people need that. They like that structure. And that's not me. I feel like a caged animal when that's going on, you know? And what I've found is that like when like every game dev is going to face this. You'll sit down and you're like, I need to work on my game. You just aren't feeling it. You're just like, ugh. I look at the task list. I know that needs to be done. I don't want to do it. I don't have it in me right now. And that's always that hard moment where you need to make the decision. Am I just not disciplined enough? And I need to shut that down and just do the work. Or is my brain or body trying to tell me something that in the back of my mind, I'm still kind of processing this stuff. I'm not ready to do that yet. And that's the part of my brain that I listen to, maybe too much. And what I'll do is I will allow that to happen. I'll be like, okay, you know, it's not mandatory I get this done today, so I'm going to not do that. I'm going to draw pictures all day. Why am I doing that? I don't know. It's fun. My brain tells me it's okay. And what I have found is that by the time I go back to those tasks that do need to get done, I do need to ship my game, I do have that list of things that need to get done. Once I've kind of scratched that itch and gotten whatever, if I want to do some drawing or like I've got a podcast bubbling up in my head I want to get out, once I've gotten past that, when I come back around to those game dev tasks, I'm just in such a better spot. I'm more joyful. It comes out more easily. And I feel like you can feel that in the end product, pardon me, whether it's a game or whether it's a book or whatever it is, you've experienced that for sure. When you're playing something or experiencing something, you're like, oh, the people who made this were having a good time. They love this. I can feel the love, little details and stuff. Yeah. That's the mind frame I want to be in when I make stuff. And if I'm not there, I feel like something's wrong and I maybe too much, but I allow myself to go and do those other things and let the stuff wait. I can't tell you if that's the right decision or not, but it works for me. I guess I have been like, when like my book felt like a big dumb tangent. Like, what am I doing? I should be like, in the amount of time it took to make this, there's a world where I could have released like a game or 4. Like some people are so fast at making games, but it's done well. It's been so gratifying. I've had so many people that it has helped. It sells. It just sells every day. Every single day it sells copies, and it's been like validating to me, right? It has been like, yeah, Matt, if you want to go be a weirdo and write a book for some reason, even though you're trying to make games and you want to illustrate it, are you even an artist? And I'm like, not yet, but like I do it and it works. That's, I don't know, that's the universe telling me like, yeah, you know what, Matt, if you want to start a podcast or a newsletter, you should just do that because the games are always going to be there. There's always more games to make. But like, if you want to go off on a tangent or something, do it, but just come back. Right?
Yeah.
I think that's
well,
the thing for me.
What it sounds to me like is the plight of a true artist, right? Because like you're trying to put like heart into the things that you create. And I feel like when people, especially like game developers, when they're trying to pursue like maximizing revenue and like efficiency with their work schedule, I feel like that's when you kind of pull the soul out of a project and you don't get those experiences where you can say like, oh yeah, I can tell that the devs like loved working on this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I always want to see the art in things. You can kind of feel when something was made cynically, you know? Like you'll watch, I think probably maybe one of the worst examples of this would be like Hollywood making a remake where you can tell they don't care. They don't even know the source material. I don't want to give examples but they're there. Everyone's experienced them. We're like, oh, I used to love that franchise, and it comes back, and you're like, do they even know what universe they're building in? Like this just feels like a money grab. I don't want that. Some people are fine with it, and like sometimes those are fun. It's like popcorn, you know. Like I don't knock it, you know, guilty pleasures and all that. But like I think we all. I say I think we all. I know I am always searching for the art, and you know it when you see it and when you feel it, you know, when it hits you and you're like, oh, this, like it some entertainment that we consume, it goes from like, yeah, you know, I'm just killing some time on a Saturday night to like, oh, this is art. And it slowly envelops you. And like, that's that's what I want. That's where I want to create from. That's what I want to experience out in the world. And yeah, I do seek that out. And like, if I ever hit that bar, I'm real happy.
Yeah, that's awesome. I I am trying to be aware of people listening to this or watching this that may not be familiar with you, and they may be very cynical, like, what, this guy hasn't shipped a game? Like, who is he to talk about all this stuff? And I know that you have an extensive history in game development, but maybe you should just share some of that so that people aren't like, what, who is this guy, you know?
For sure. Yeah. It's really hard for me because like I wrote a whole book about making a game by yourself. And I get people sometimes who are like, well, what games have you made by yourself? And I'm like, well, there's one that's on Steam. It's called Indie Game Sim. And I would call that game artistic because I put a lot of like, it's really weird. There was some times when I was creating content for that game, and also I wrote a very long article on it's now gamedeveloper.com, but it used to be Gama Sutra. But
Hmm.
like I would tear up, which is a weird experience for me, and that was a signal to me that I was creating something artistic, and that the work I was making meant something to me. You know what I mean? I haven't felt that way with Pixel Washer yet. It's more of a kind of standard commercial game, um, but here it comes. I talk about this in my podcast. The train boss of thought. It has hit me. My train of thought has lost, and yeah, I talk about the Final Fantasy VI train boss that you suplex. Um, one more time. What was the question again?
I was just asking about your game dev experience because I
Oh,
know
there it
that
is.
before. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Indie Game Sim is the one game. It's an example of how to make a game all by yourself because I made that one. It was just me. I used music from a friend. I used some code from another friend, but like I was the only one who ever made a commit to the actual code base. But I have a long history of making games by myself, just like for friends, right? Um, and it's what's weird too is that like in the games industry, I don't have any AAA games under my belt. I don't have a laundry list of games I can point you to that exist on the Switch marketplace or something like that. But like I've made dozens of games just for my own edification, just to amuse friends. Like when I was in, I guess high school, I was making friends games to troll my friends. I made a
Nice.
side-scrolling platformer that was so stupid. It was called Benzer's Crazy Train Flight, an intentionally stupid name, and it was a side-scrolling platformer. And like you'd be walking along, it was screen-based because I didn't have the I was made in QBasic. I didn't have the raw power to like scroll the screen, and so I would just like Zelda One style would zoom it over, and like the very first level that or screen that would scroll, it was just a pit. So players would just fall right down it. It was sort of like I want to be the guy, but I made games just for fun and just to put them out there for a long time, like a decade or something. And so I have a lot of experience making a game all by myself. But when it comes to like commercial games, like Pixel Washer is aiming to be, I have way less experience. And a lot of people, yeah, they can definitely look at my experience and my portfolio and be like, "Who's this guy? What's he talking about?" Um, and I totally get that. I was also at Play-Doh, which is a mobile game company, for 5 years, and I couldn't even tell you how many games I worked on when I was there. At least a dozen, I think, where I made them well, all by myself, but like as part of a team. Usually, the design would come to me from up high, and I would just dictate that. And a lot of times, we would contract an artist, but it was like I would be the only one committing to that game code base. There'd be some game libraries coming from other part of the teams and stuff, and so there was like a 5 year period where it felt very much like just me in the trenches, mostly by myself, just making games. But it's strange because, I'm mostly a web tech engineer. I use things like JavaScript and TypeScript. And so what that does is it makes it so that a lot of my games are actually embedded software. So not a lot of the games I've worked on are like the product. Like a Wizard's Lizard is another game where I contributed, roughly half of the design and development. And that's on Steam and that's for sale. But most of the games I've worked on in my career are tied to a platform. You can go play a bunch of my games on Play-Doh. A bunch of my games don't exist at all anymore. I made them for like Intel and Microsoft as experimental stuff as they were getting really into like HTML5 in the early 2000 aughts, right? So I've got this kind of scattered career, and I do wish it was more gaming centric. But the first indie game company I founded was called Lost Decade Games, and it was the reason we called it that is because we had spent 10 years making websites. And it was a kind of career that I just stumbled into. You know, I was just making websites for fun, and a local company was hiring, and they're like, "You want to make websites?" I'm like, "Sure." And then next I'm working at Yahoo, and like before I knew that, I was like, wait, like I think a lot of people experience this. I actually saw someone talk about this recently. It was like when you hit 30, a lot of people have that kind of, hopefully not midlife crisis, but like third life crisis or quarter life crisis. And I know I hit it where I was like, what am I doing with my life? Websites are cool. I'm not knocking anyone who loves making websites. I did it for a long time. I love making websites. But it was like, you know, if I die tomorrow, what's my regret going to be? And it was like, I want to be making games. So yeah, kind of a long-winded answer there, and I almost feel like I have to explain myself because it's like, you're gonna write a book about making games. Where are your games? You know, and I feel that I do, and that's one of the reasons I'm motivated now to make more games. So I think that's a totally fair question, for sure.
Yeah. I don't share the potential cynicism of the audience. I just wanted to get you to talk about your experience because I know that you've worked on a lot of games. You do have a lot of experience. So you're not like somebody who's just trying to like market on the idea of making games without, I know that you have been in the trenches and everything. So that's
Yeah,
all I was trying to bring up. I
totally
know that
fair.
you were, yeah, and I know that you were shopping Pixel Washer around for a publisher for a while. What was that process like?
Exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I came up with the concept of Pixel Washer in the shower. And at the time, I had another game called, you mentioned Witchmore, that I was working on. And I really had like this, I think I was doomed for failure because I had like, I just started my new indie game company. I had a runway of a couple of years, but I was so distracted by like setting up my newsletter and starting a podcast and stuff. I was not dedicated to that game. And by the time I kind of circled back around to like, okay, I need to, I actually had publishers reaching out about Witchmore, asking me about publishing, and they were like, "Can you send us a demo?" And I remember this period where I sat down for a month, and I was like, "I'm just going to finish the demo itself." And when I was done, I was like, "This is kind of a bad demo," you know. And I was like, "I don't even want to send this to this publisher." And I was like, I was a little embarrassed, and so instead, I sent Pixel Washer, and that actually got they didn't sign. The vast majority of publishers any of us talk to are not going to sign, but they liked it more than Witchmore. And any friends, because I do this a lot, I'll just show people what I'm working on, and I'll show friends and family, and all of them were like, "You should be working on Pixel Washer." I don't even, you can't even explain what Witchmore is to me. And when I sat down and looked at my, you should see my ridiculous design doc. It's like this thick of just like a crazy person, just all these doodles and draw. It's a mess. I think it would take me 3 years to finish Witchmore, and I think when I was done, people would be like, "Oh, neat." Like,
Yeah.
it's got a lot of depth to it, I guess, but like it doesn't look great, and it plays okay and stuff like that. Um, I don't know. I struggle with that quite a bit, but publishers have been a lot more responsive to Pixel Washer. And so when I got a little bit of publisher interest, I saw that as a sign, and I noticed that like I'm not very good at marketing or promotion, and there's other things like localization which I'm just not excited about. There's lots of stuff a publisher can bring to the table. So I started to take that more seriously, and I just tweeted about it. I was like, "Hey, who should publish Pixel Washer? Here's what the game is. Who would want to publish like a really chill, very minimalist, simple game?" And Armor Games responded, Devolver Digital responded. I met with both of them, and that to me is a signal that there's something there, right? Some of those posts also performed way better. Like my game posts don't get anything. Like people follow me for my game dev content, and I don't blame them. And like my Steam dev cheat sheet and my book and stuff like that. And that's the reason they follow me. And I'll be like, "How about a game too?" And they're like, "I don't want your games. I want your books and your," and like I totally get that. It's just the wrong audience. So I should go look for gamers, right? But when I started to pitch Pixel Washer to publishers, what I saw were the signs of like, yeah, this is something that publishers might really be interested in. But I spent like 6 months pitching, and not like full time steady, but like over half a dozen publishers, approaching 10 maybe, and some I've never heard of. You've probably never heard of, and some Devolver Digital is probably the biggest indie game publisher out there. It's a $1 billion company, you know. And I talked with one of the heads of the company, and they liked the concept a lot. Again, didn't sign, right? But it's a signal that they like it. And then also just being online a lot like I am, my buddy Sean McKenzie, who runs Bacon and Games, reached out, and he was on the publishing side at Armor Games for 7 years, and we just started talking, and all of a sudden he was like, he mentioned where he lived, and I was like, wait, what? That's 20 minutes from me, right? Like next, we shouldn't do a Zoom call. Next time, let's get a coffee. Like that's amazing. And he had so much publishing experience. I think it was just like I don't even think we tried. It was just such a natural thing. He started helping me with the pitch deck, and my pitch deck went from like, that's okay, to like, that's a good pitch deck, and that made a world of difference. So it was like I actually wrote an article on Valadria.com, 9 things I learned pitching my game to publishers, which I thought was very useful and interesting, and a lot of those I didn't really expect. So if anyone's interested, go check those out. But yeah, finding it's been interesting. I I can't say too much more, but I have some news. I have some news. It's bubbling up. I don't want to get myself in trouble. One of my main tenets in life is like I never want to get in trouble for just not shutting my mouth. Like if I flap my mouth and I say the wrong things and I get myself in trouble, that's when I feel like I have the ultimate failure. So that's where I'm at right now. But
That's awesome.
I'll just say some gears are turning.
Awesome. I'll just say 2 things. One, we can cut anything out of this podcast. Future Thomas will go through and just cut stuff out if you slip up and say something you don't want or whatever. Also, we can plan to post this in the future if you want to speak more freely about stuff. That's fine too. But anyway, yeah. So just wanted to insert those things in there. But yeah,
For sure.
but the process for shopping for a publisher is daunting. So you felt like when you were looking around and trying to figure out a good fit, your primary things were things that you could do, but maybe would take up too much of your time, like localization and marketing help and things of that nature.
Yeah. So it's like think of yourself as a puzzle piece, right? Like whether you intend to or not, you have some shape. And a publisher is going to have some shape too. And most publishers have the same kind of we do everything shape. That's been my experience. Like all the publishers I talked to, none of them were like, "Oh, we don't do marketing or we don't do localization or we don't do whatever." It was only the very few which were like very specialized. Like some I saw that were like, "We don't do anything but porting. We don't touch your game, and you can approach us and be like, hey, I want my game on Switch,' and they'll be like, great, we'll do the porting and development of it. We will publish it on Switch and we'll split the proceeds or whatever. But like, we're not helping you with anything else. It will just exist on Switch, and like you should promote it and stuff like that. But the vast majority of the publishers I talked to would fit any shape, like a liquid. You could just pour them on top of your puzzle piece, and any pieces that you didn't have, they would just fill up for you. And for me, I feel like I got the development down packed. I can just, if you put a computer in front of me and sit me down, I will just start typing and a game will come out eventually. I've also, I can do art. I have like 20 gigs of sound effects. I have like 10 gigs of music. I have no problem getting all that stuff done. Localization is kind of a struggle. And it's like, if you want to do it right, it's kind of expensive. And that's the other thing too. I don't have money. I'm not a wealthy person. Publishers have money, most of them. They can help you pay for development. They can hire people to help you kind of fill the gaps that you're not. Like I'm not great at content, honestly. Like making levels, that's something I'm looking for right now. Is I'm actually actively hiring a 2D level designer to come in and help me make levels for Pixel Washer because it needs way more. And it's a kind of game I call it a hungry game, which is and like I almost feel silly for having put myself in this box where I'm making a hungry game. Like one of my principles is to make games that don't have that hungry feel. And just to explain that a little more, like Tetris is not a very hungry game. You drop blocks and you're pretty much happy, right? But a game like Minecraft, the hungriest game on the planet. Any feature it's basically like a universe simulator, right?
Yeah.
But Pixel Washer, it does simulate a world. You control a little piggy walking around a world, and you have a headquarters you go home to, and it's pretty hungry. It wants a bunch of stuff in the headquarters, and it wants like 1,000 levels. Like if I can get 100 levels in the game, I'd be very happy. But it's like there's almost no ends to how much stuff it wants in there.
Yeah.
And so publishers do bring quite a bit to the table in that regard. Just a big part of it being like resources. You know, I don't, I previously I didn't know a bunch of pixel artists. I don't know a bunch of level designers. I don't have the time to be like, you know what, I am going to spend 6 more months on this game.
Hmm.
I have not been able to just to make that decision on my own. But when working with a publisher, you can because you've got a budget and you've got a runway and you've got milestones planned out and stuff. So it
Yeah.
really is. I know there's a lot of developers who tell you like don't even talk to publishers. In fact, Developer Digital has a GDC talk. You don't need an effing publisher. Is the
Yeah.
name of their GDC talk, and that's coming from a publisher. And so there's
Hmm.
this common thing of like you don't need a publisher, but like maybe not need is the right word, but like would your project be 10x better with a publisher? And sometimes it's like
Yeah.
yeah, it would. Like imagine, especially going from solo to like all of a sudden you have a team with like 10 other people who are they're not full time on it the way you are, but they're helping. They're out there making connections. They're talking to IGN. They have a massive list of YouTubers. They have the name recognition sometimes, the branding, and just you being under their umbrella. Like Devolver has 300 to 400,000 Steam followers. And what that means is anytime they launch, even if your game, if you launch with them, if your game only has 1,000 wishlists or something, that doesn't even matter because if someone's following Devolver, they're still gonna. It's almost as if your game instantly had 300 or 400,000 wish lists. It's not
Yeah.
quite as good, but it's like those emails are going out, and that will make a difference for you. So yeah, I don't know. I've published on my own. A Wizard's Blizzard was self-published. Indie Game Sim was self-published. I've also self-published games on like the Apple Store and Android and stuff like that. But working with the publisher is kind of next level stuff, and I think it's worth doing once. Do it once.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, that's the thing I've thought about too. Is like for all of us, we need to be making more games. All of us, we need to be making more games. Even you, like 2 games, as we were talking earlier, infinitely more games that I've launched in Valadria. But all of us, we need to hit like 3, 4, 5, 6 games. You know, and
Yep.
what if one of them? What if one of them you ship with a publisher and every other game you self-publish? Like, what's the harm in that? You gain experience, you gain I don't know notoriety or something. Like, just seems like a big win.
Yeah.
But everybody's mileage
agree.
will vary.
Yeah. Who do you pay attention to in the indie sphere that you think is doing things right?
That's a good question. I think most of the devs are probably people I've already heard of, like Jonas Tyroller is doing really smart things. What I really like about following him is that he's pretty honest about like he recognizes he has a massive YouTube following. Like almost anything he does is going to be successful, but like he's very critical of his own work, and he cranks out videos where he's like he even has ones where like here's all the things I don't agree with that I said 2 years ago, which is so useful because as you know, as you progress through your career, you're changing your mind all the time. I do 180s constantly. Well, I'll be like, this is how you should make a game. 6 months later, I'm like, that's completely wrong. This is how you should make a game.
Yeah.
And it's all relative about where you are. And it's all like, it's all wrong and it's all right in its own ways. And it's all relative to everybody. I'm going to look it up real quick. Forgive me. It's who made Choo Choo Charles? Because that's another.
Gavin. I, something with the E. Easton Biz or something like that.
Yeah, I would butcher the name. I apologize. But just when I see someone do something like that, like he set out to be like, okay, how do I make a game that goes viral? And he saw the Thomas the Train Engine stuff, and he was like, I'm going to make a really simple horror game with a really brilliantly designed monster, and it's made millions of dollars. And his next game was it Cuff Bust? It's on track to do maybe even better. He's doing YouTube. He's making games pretty fast. Just honestly, a genius, right? Because I'm trying to do something similar. I know dozens of developers who are trying to do similar things. I know firsthand how hard that is to do, and he makes it look easy. And the fact that he also makes YouTube videos describing his process and stuff is, boy, is that just pure gold. And I tell people this sometimes, and like you were saying earlier, like who's Matt Hackett? He's like 2 Steam games. Like why should I read a book by this guy? Why should I listen to this guy? And like that's fair. And I will say to those people, don't follow me. Go follow Mark Brown, Game Maker's Toolkit. Go follow Jonas Tyroller. Go follow the Choo Choo Charles Dev. But the fact of the matter is that like the advice that the Choo Choo Charles Dev gives is sometimes just way beyond what some of us are able to do right now. And that's the reason it's nice to follow kind of smaller developers. Like a lot of the advice that I give is something that even a first-time developer could take advantage of, right? Whereas like the next game from True Charles Dev is he was saying on a podcast with Jonas Tyroler recently. He was saying like he was thinking like, what would it take to make $100 million game?
Yeah.
I'm not there, man. I'm like, what would it take to make $1 million game? That would be amazing for me. I've made a game that made like a quarter of that, and I'm like, that felt like an amazing success to me because I come from the Midwest. I come from like a a middle class family. I do not know what it's like to have money, and so if a game can make like $250,000, I'm like, whoa, we are rolling here now, right? And so like when I see a game that's made millions of dollars, I'm like, that's next level stuff. An analogy I would use is like, I don't play chess. I'm terrible at chess, but I follow chess, and I really like, say for example, Magnus Carlsen is just a fascinating person to follow because he's one of the maybe the best chess player that's ever existed, and we live in a world where he exists, so we get to experience that. He can't teach me how to play chess. In anything he would tell me, I'd be like, duh, like it just rolls off my stupid smooth brain, right?
Yeah.
But someone who's more like ELO refers to your score for playing chess. Someone who's more like 1,000 ELO or something could actually teach me things to the point where I would be able to learn from it. You know what I mean? Maybe up to like 1,500. But anyone beyond that, like a 2,000 plus ELO chess player, would be explaining to me how to play it. I'm like, what are you talking about? Get the rooks on the file. Like they just took my bishop. I don't know what to do. I'm not there. I need to work my way up to it. And so I think that's the point a lot of devs are at. And it's hard too because like Mark Brown from Game Maker's Toolkit, he's released 2 games on Steam, which so admirable. I can't believe how prolific he is. He makes YouTube videos, cranks them out. 2 games? Are you kidding me? He's already got. But they are. I follow Chris Zukowski very carefully, closely. He's the howtomarketagame.com guru. He says things like, "Don't make side-scrolling platformer puzzle games." That's what Mark Brown did. He says Steam hates puzzle games. That's what Mark Brown did with his word game. Yeah. And it's really difficult because you'll see him breaking the rules, going out and doing that. But also he's got over 1 million YouTube subscribers. Yeah. So that's like, you could probably make a game about doing your taxes if you have 1 million YouTube subscribers. Like it's gonna sell. Yeah. So like, I don't know. And I know like game devs like us who are just on YouTube get a lot of scrutiny because it's like, who are you? Like you were saying, why should I listen to you? Shut up. Like, I should only follow the big people. But I think that's the thing is like, think of it as a ladder. Like I'm pretty low on the ladder. I'm not the bottom rung, right? I'm maybe like I'm quarter of the way up or something. And like some of my advice can be followed by very beginner stuff. But like if you've already made a game that has made $1 million, I can't tell you anything useful. You should just completely ignore me. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's really hard. The last name I'll throw out there, actually, Tanya Short, I want to say, is really worth following. She writes huge essays online about like here's and she works with teams sometimes. She collaborates, but she'll have like, here's a gigantic essay about what makes a game cozy. Amazing. She runs Kitfox Studios. They made like Boyfriend Dungeon, and they published Dwarf Fortress. So now they're just swimming in money. And she's you can tell, just a brilliant developer and a brilliant leader. Definitely follow her. I also follow Ben Anderson. Ben Anderson, who runs Heartbeast Game Dev. His podcast is great because it's just very real and raw. He's not like you and I know, like, you've got quite a polished show. Like your videos look great, and you can tell you put a lot of care into them. Ben grabs his phone, hits record, and then hits upload, and he's done. And I admire that so much because in 40 minutes he'll have a podcast done. And in 40 minutes I'm like, okay, I think I got my camera in the right place now. Yeah, right. I'm like, what am I doing here? What am I even doing? And he'll have cranked out like 6 YouTube videos, 6 tutorials in the amount of time that I've like written the script for one. So that's one reason I think it's good to follow Ben, is because he's a great example of like, just get it done, just do it. Don't overthink it. Like publish it. But yeah, great question.
He also has a great book too.
He does,
I don't know if you've read it, but I'm in the middle of it right now. It's really good.
I am very lucky he sent me a signed copy. We have each other's books. Yeah. Production Point is the name of his book. It's really cool. Yeah, it's got a smart, just to give you everybody the gist of it, it's like you hit a point when you're making your game where there's a production point, and that point is when you're you've gone from prototype to like, what am I making? What is this thing? To like, oh, now I know what it is and I know exactly how to finish it and it's practically on rails, right? And I know that's something we all struggle with. Like I never got to that point with Witchmore. I feel like I'm only just now approaching that point with Pixel Watcher after being in development for 2 years. Um, but yeah, Ben Anderson, that's the thing too, is a lot of devs don't take the time to make stuff for other devs,
Yeah.
you know? And like, I'm grateful. I'm grateful you make content. I'm grateful Ben makes a podcast. I'm grateful he made a book and published it. Like that stuff is so valuable. It's so useful for all of us. And a lot of the devs who are on that upper levels, they're like, why would I make content? I don't need to. I've got millions of dollars from my games. And it's like, fair enough. But if you do
Yeah.
decide to do that, I will be very grateful.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. You've also released a couple online courses for game developers to try and convey a lot of the information that you've learned and stuff. How has that process been for you? Because I'm always trying to feel out like when I quit my day job, I thought that I was going to make my own video games, uh, upload YouTube videos, and create online courses teaching game development, and that was going to be like my three-pronged business plan. And I cut out courses entirely because I just thought it was too much, and I just wanted to focus on doing game dev and YouTube was too much already. So I'm always curious to hear people's experiences with like creating courses for game developers.
I will say right off the bat, I think you made the right decision cutting it.
Hmm.
I think that it is its own skill. It's a lot like mastering YouTube or even just not even mastering, even just showing up and doing what we all know we should be doing if you actually want to grow on YouTube, which is a video a week, video,
Yeah.
video, video, video. Courses are a lot like that. And it's also like, oh, the thumbnail. You made a great video, but your thumbnail sucks, your title sucks, and you
Yeah.
didn't publish it on the right time, so no one's going to watch it. It's that kind of stuff 10x. I feel with courses because the bar is raised. It's not just something free someone could just hit play and watch, and there's no stakes. With courses, part of the whole thing is they're pretty expensive. Like if you charge 10, $20 for a course, it's probably not going to be worth your time unless you can find a massive audience through something like YouTube, right? I have one course I put up early on in Valadria's history. So I launched my book and I started my company in like 2022 or something. Book was launched right away, and then I started working on Witchmore, kind of prototyping, and then I knew I needed more products out there, more SKUs, right? I needed more. A friend of mine calls it the money button, because I needed a money button. Someone go out there and hit the button, and like I've got that with my book. It's on Amazon, it's on Itch, it's on Gumroad. You could buy a signed copy. I got mailers here ready to go, stuff like that. But it's like pretty cheap. It's $20. It's not going to pay my bills. It's very helpful, and thank you if you're out there buying the book, everybody. But I knew I needed something higher dollar, so I made a course called Making Big Indie Games, and it's still out there for sale. And I went and got a lot of advice online, and the advice was like, price it really high, and I probably got too aggressive with that. The price point, so it's like I think 2 hours of content, video content, and an ebook, and the price point that was suggested to me was like $300, and I was like, oof, I don't know. Like I get it, and I see courses out there that sell for double that, and maybe even $1,000 sometimes. But that made me uncomfortable because I'm from the Midwest. I'm not a person who has money, and it's hard for me too because a lot of our audience, like with your YouTube stuff and my book and this course, a lot of our audience is like students or scrappy indies who don't have access to a lot of money, and so asking for a lot of money has been really difficult for me. I will pitch my book all day. I'll say, go buy it right now. I feel like it's worth every penny. It might even be underpriced. I think it's got a lot of value. It's dense. It respects your time. It's only 200 pages, stuff like that. My course, I've found I have a hard time pitching it. It's higher dollar. I know there's better stuff out there. It's pretty rough because I did it like real quick, and I just kind of wanted to get it out there. It hasn't sold terribly well. It's made like a few $1,000s, but it was all like first movers. It was like all the audience that I had already built up. And I fear even that some of them may have picked it up and been like, this is not Matt's best work, and it was pretty expensive. And I've had a lot of advice about like, oh, you should put it on Udemy or Coursera and all these other places, and they all come with their own ball of wax,
Yeah.
And I think that like if you're passionate about teaching and you love making video content specifically, and you can make a bunch, like some of these courses I see are like 8 hours,
Yeah.
right? And at that point you can probably charge $200 or $300 or something for it. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, again to Ben Anderson with Heart Dev, Heart
Art
Beast Game
piece.
Dev, yeah, he already had a YouTube channel, and what he'll do is he'll release a new course, and then he'll make YouTube videos talking about something adjacent, and he'll mention his video. So he's got a natural place to promote it, and he's also like he's kind of doing the same thing. Like his YouTube content is a lot like his course content, and so to him it's all probably part of the same, you know, like same dough. You know, he's like making dough, and he just some bread is for sale, some bread is for free,
Yeah.
but it all like it has this natural cycle where it benefits itself. And like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
very prolific on YouTube. It takes me forever. I just can't put stuff out without editing it too much and
Yeah.
trying to polish it too much. And so I'm not a very good fit for that. And like I don't really consider myself an educator, maybe more of a writer. Like I know my book is educational,
Mm-hmm.
but the courses are really hard. I've literally thought about taking my course down just because I don't know if the value is there, and I don't feel good about promoting it because I don't feel the confidence in it the way I do about my book. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hard because I get why I got there. I get why I made it, and I'm kind of glad I did because at least it kind of checked that box for me of like, okay, like sometimes you just need to answer, is this the right thing for me to do or not? And the only way you can answer that is by doing it. And so I did it, and I'm like, courses probably aren't really the right choice for me. And I could be wrong because you are quite good at YouTube, but like you might have gotten to the same place where you spent a good chunk of time making a course and you realized, and it's hard. Like you know, Thomas Brush or someone has made a bunch of courses and made millions of dollars or something, and you're like, hey, I can
Mm-hmm.
like it kind of looks easy. Like I could do that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I could charge way more for it than I can for a game. So maybe that could get me to the point where I could be making games full time as if I just made a course or two or something. But
Yeah.
I think you need a particular skill set. I think you need to be a passionate educator to do a good job at it. Like we were talking earlier about you can feel the love in things sometimes, you
Yeah.
know? And I think if I were to make another course, I don't know if it would be filled with love. I think it would kind of feel like Matt wanted to get something out and
Yeah.
help people, you know, and get stuff
Yeah.
out of my brain, but also like, does it approach closer to money grab than it does something some art that I want to make?
Yeah.
Probably, at least for
Yeah.
me. So
Yeah.
it's really hard. I think it's a great question because, you know, as you know, the way a lot of us get to do this full-time indie thing is not just I've got a game and it sells
Yeah.
great and I live off that. It's I've got 4 games and
Yeah.
2 books and 3 courses and I do YouTube sponsorships and I've got this paid newsletter, and like that's something I haven't done is monetize my newsletter.
Yeah.
Like I'm at that point, I hit that threshold where I'm over 1,000 subscribers, so I could begin to monetize it, but like I just don't feel right about it yet. So I get why
Mm-hmm.
you got there, and how, like courses seem really good, but I don't know. They're definitely not for everybody. I think it's a particular skill set to make them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a hard thing too. And I'm also realizing that when you're trying to stack a lot of these endeavors that indie devs participate in, there seems to be like a natural hierarchy of like like we were talking about how some of these big YouTubers are able to they could make whatever they want and make a decent, you know, profit off of it. So there is like that sort of like, do I invest in YouTube so that I get more people watching what I'm doing, or do I invest more in game development so that, you know, I can show people these games that I've made, which will attract more YouTube followers? It's like kind of like the chicken and the egg situation, and trying to gain an audience and then monetize an audience is like a whole. It's a whole thing that I don't really want to participate in, but I'm like still trying to figure it out in like an authentic way, which makes it hard.
It is really hard. I follow a lot of musicians
Hmm.
online that I just like watching people. I like watching people do things really well, especially if I
Yeah.
know how hard it is. But I can't like bass guitar. I love watching bass people play bass guitar. I can't do it, but it's like it's very satisfying. But I've seen the musicians lament how they're like, in the '70s you need to be an amazing bassist and you can get hired and you know sign a deal and whatever. And now it's like to be a musician in 2025 or whatever, you need to be amazing at social media. You need to be
Hmm.
cranking out TikTok videos or YouTube shorts or whatever. And like, yeah,
Yeah.
you need to release albums, but that is not enough. You need to pair them with like clips and memes and stuff like that. And it is really hard. I don't really know how to grow an audience in that way. Like I grew a little bit of an audience on Twitter, mostly through memes and just helping out other game devs and stuff. And that really did help me sell books. There were times when I would have like a relatively viral, like my Steam Dev cheat sheet. The first time I posted that, I could look at my Amazon sales in my book and like, whoa, like it went up by 10x and it kind of floated for like a week or two. And I was like, there's nothing else that caused that I know of. I didn't see any YouTube videos or no one else was doing that. That was like, this is what caused that, right? And I feel like I know how to promote my book. I still don't know how to promote my games. I can't sit, like I could sit down right now and I could make a tweet or something that would probably get 100 retweets and sell $10 or something like that. Like I know how to do that. I don't know how to sit down and get 100 wish lists or 1,000 wish lists or something. I see other people do it and I'm like, yeah, that's smart. I need to do that. And then I sit down and I'm like, I don't know. I know how to make the game. I don't know how to gather an audience around it. I don't know how to sell it. I think that they feel like two very different skills that some people just kind of naturally happen to have. Like their character sheet just worked out. They happen to have those traits and it works out in that way. Yep. I don't think I have it. I know how to make games. I'm still learning how to sell them. It's difficult.
Have you ever considered expanding your team or like partnering with somebody? Because like I know Jonas Tide Roller does that. He has like his co-developer Paul for his games, and I know other people. It seems to be a helpful situation to strengthen your areas of weakness with other people, that can bring more and make the product better, and you can do that by like signing with a publisher or something and have them take care of a lot of these things too. But have you ever considered like building like your development studio into more people or partnerships or anything like that?
I would love to. Something that my old co-founder Jeff Blair and I talked about a lot. We've co-founded Lost Decade Games together, and that's where we made a Wizard's Lizard, and that's the banner I used to self-publish indie game sim. But we are like peanut butter and peanut butter. You just shove them together, and you got a big glob of peanut butter, and you're like, I mean, my wife loves just grabbing a spoon of peanut butter and eating it, but like, the more common ones are like peanut butter and jelly, peanut butter and chocolate. Like it pairs beautifully with other stuff. And Jeff and I have like the same brain. We're systems engineers. We love to code. We're happiest when we're designing games and building the systems and stuff. Neither one of us are very good at business development. Neither one of us are marketers. And so we've thought about like bringing someone in who could just handle those things. But it's so hard to find people. It's so hard to find real collaborators. Like everybody has their kind of own plans. And when you collaborate with someone, you have so many compromises that you want to make. Yeah. And everyone just is aware of that opportunity cost. Like, are these the right partners? Are these the right collaborators? And whenever you're working with someone, when you go from solo and you're 100% of your time, you know exactly what you can and should do with it, perhaps. But once you add even one more collaborator, everybody knows how this works. Now you've got meetings. And any decision you want to make needs to be bounced off of someone else. And like that just, it gets exponential when you get up to like, oh, now our team is like 20 people. Every single thing, all the planning needs meetings and needs documentation and syncing up with people. And that begins to be a drag. But that's all just really an excuse for like, I would love to find the right business developer or marketing person to like, help me, like the puzzle pieces we were talking about earlier. I don't have those pieces. And if someone there's someone out there who's a perfect puzzle piece could just click right into my project, and like you see it once in a while, you see it happen. That's when you get that like lightning in the bottle. You're like, whoa, just like the stars align. Like I don't know if you've been following Clear Obscure Expedition 33, but that is one of those examples. It's a new it's a Sandfall Games. I would say it's AAA quality. It's a turn-based classic JRPG, but it's very French. So it's a FRPG. But like the stars aligned, right? It was like their composer made I can't even tell you how good this soundtrack is. It's amazing. And they just randomly found him on SoundCloud. Like the first post he'd ever made was like, oh, here's a song I uploaded to SoundCloud. And they found him like, you want to make a game soundtrack? Like, are you a good composer? Like, you seem good. And then He's like, oh, I'm one of the best in the world apparently, and it's just like the stars like lined up perfectly. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And that just kind of happens sometimes. I think that's what we all wants to happen, but it's like it's rare, and finding the right person to collaborate with, yeah,
Yeah.
it's really difficult.
Yeah, and it's interesting how getting discovered or matched like that with other people oftentimes comes from your online presence and actually like taking the steps to put the stuff that you're working on online. I've been doing some contract work for a publisher, and part of the stuff that I've been doing has been like vetting job applications. And so, just hundreds and hundreds of emails and resumes and portfolios for different positions and different skill sets. Um, and it's so interesting to see how people try and pitch themselves and why they would be like a good fit for the job. And it makes it so easy to tell who is actually like super competent and like who you would want to move on to like the next interview or whatever. And so yeah, there's like so many people like start off their emails with like, I've loved playing video games since I was a kid. And I would say probably like 50% of the job applications would start like that. And I'm like, I know that that makes it seem unique in your head, but like everybody's saying that. And so people who like are going the extra mile to put their work online in a unique way, and like making it look good, even if it's not like an artistic role, I think that goes a long way to trying to find those matches.
I think you're totally right. Yeah, when I posted my 2D level designer job recently, and I've got like 100 emails in my inbox, and I've seen a lot of that too, where
Yeah.
some people might be great, like a great fit, but like the email and the portfolio or whatever just didn't communicate that to me correctly. And like a lot of times, like maybe it's even my fault for like my brain wasn't receptive to what they were trying to say, or whatever the case is. Um, yeah, putting yourself out there is really hard. I know a lot of devs who just hate doing it, but it is like, if the Claire Obscure composer hadn't, you know, I know people who are like, oh, I don't know, I don't like posting my music or like my art. I have a friend who's an amazing artist, and she never tells us about it. She has like an Instagram following and stuff. She never talks about it because she's just so like, I don't like talking about that. I don't want you looking at it and
Yeah.
stuff. And I totally get that, but like, you, you're not going to find those connections unless you do.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't know if you're holding yourself back, like maybe, but it's a tricky thing. It's you really do have to put yourself out there if you do want to make those um, connections. I guess one last thought I have about the like, I really wish I had like a business developer or marketing friend is that like, I guess for starters, most of the friends I just naturally make are people who are also making games, and so it's like peanut butter friends, like peanut butter and
Yeah.
peanut butter, right?
Yeah.
And then also when you do get people who reach out to you from the business development and marketing side, for better or for worse, the way it just works is that a lot of them kind of, it's like your spam filter kicks up, because it's like when someone comes to you and like, hey, I make games too, look at this cool game I made, and sometimes you can feel the art in it, you're like, oh, this is cool, this is creative, I like this. But then someone's like, hey, I'm a business developer or I'm a marketer. A lot of like, there's a lot of scammy stuff that comes from that direction. I'm not saying it all is. And someone could be very honest and like, no, seriously, I like your game. I have ideas on how to promote it, and I know how to make business connections and stuff. But like, again, maybe it's just me not being receptive to that communication, but sometimes it comes across as scammy or something. And so
Yeah.
there may very well have been biz dev people who I would have been really better off collaborating with, but
Yeah.
for some reason I didn't put myself out there enough or something, or like when they did communicate to me, I was like, oh, this looks like spam, like just archive that or something. So
Yeah.
I think that particular connection, like connections with people who are outside of my wheelhouse and who would match my puzzle piece really well, I think it's harder to connect with them because I have a harder time recognizing when it's good and authentic, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
totally. And marketing is hard too because you're trying to get people to trust you and then give you money for stuff that you've made. And there's like a lot of responsibility that goes along with that. And I feel like in its purest form, marketing is just trying to find people who want what you are selling and you're matching that up, and you're making it easier for them. And they're like, "Oh, I'm so glad that you told me about this. This is what I want." But then the bad
Yeah.
side of it is like you're trying to like overpromise or oversell, or you're trying to push your product on somebody who doesn't really need it or want it, and that's when it feels scummy.
Yeah, and I feel like it's easy to feel that way. It's really unfortunate, but it is like yeah, it kind of comes along with it. It's part of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I was just talking to somebody recently about you're the one that turned me onto this idea, and I forgot what you called it. I think you referred to it as a game dev wrapper, or like a project wrap. Is that the term that you used, where you have like this core um, like collection of code and assets that you can just bring from project to project to kind of kickstart new games. I can't remember the terminology that you used.
I call it a shell. I think
Shell.
a
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
wrapper would work fine too. And I don't think it's an official term. Like a lot of people will use engine, but to me that's very different. Like an engine would be
yeah,
like Unity. But Unity is not something where you can just be like, stick your game in there. It's like there's a lot of work to it. Like you got to figure out how you want to architect everything yourself. It's more like a canvas. And I think that's not the idea we're talking about here. So
yeah.
I think wrapper works fine. But for me a shell would be, let's say I launch Pixel Washer next year. It's done. It's completely finished. And a shell, to me, what I like about shell is the analogy is like, or yeah, I guess analogy works, but it's like a hermit crab has like a shell, and it comes in there, and it's like, I'm a little hermit crab. I'm gonna walk around with the shell. It's hard, it's protective, and it's battle tested, right? It's like firm, and then they outgrow it, and they'll jump into a different shell. But the shell is still there, right? And to me, a shell is a shipped game, and I don't mean like not even finished is good enough. Shipped on Steam for sale, Steam integration, settings. It's not buggy or not very buggy. It's like it's withstood the test of being in the hands of just random Steam users who are brutal and vicious and have beat it and tore at it, but the shell with it, the shell remains, right? And after I've launched Pixel Washer and it's done, and maybe a few months after, that's when I would see that as a shell where I can take that code base, rip out the Pixel Washer parts, change the title to like Matt's Hot New Game, and then I just start sticking in there, and the settings are done. The Steam integration is done. The achievement data is all wrong. The Most of the art's gonna go, most of the sounds are gonna go, but like maybe I'll keep some of the sounds, maybe I'll keep some of the menu UI or something. And like tomorrow, I could copy paste my code base, rip out some of the guts, put Matt's New Game as the title. Tomorrow, I could have a game that's rough, it's a prototype, but it's inside of this shell where it is ready to launch on Steam. Like I could put it on Steam tomorrow, and it's just the worst game on Steam, but it exists. It's fully integrated. No settings work. No Steam integration. It's not that buggy. Like all those things that you want. Yeah, I don't know if that was necessary, but I like to.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? Like,
One
for
hundred
you, the
percent.
wrapper.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I made a. You inspired me to create a separate code repository where I just have all of like my core utility code, and whenever I start a new project, that's what I clone it into as a subrepo first, and it has all of my scenes set up, my music manager, all of my UI tools, my pop-up manager, achievements, localization, like all of the, and like stuff that I use frequently. Like I have a script that just rotates an object like at a certain speed on a certain axis, and like I use that on a ton of different things. That's in there, so I have all of these toolings and stuff that I can just throw on and get going, and already has the title scene set up, has the pause menu, the options settings and everything, the save stuff, and it has all of the stuff blocked out for each console, so it detects if I'm running on Nintendo Switch, this is how I'm going to save all of the
Oh,
data,
nice.
and it just saves so much time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Why rewrite that wheel when you've already written it, right? And it's different
Yeah.
if someone else has written it and maybe you could use it or something. But if it's a shell that's sitting, another terminology I like to use is workshop. A lot of devs I talk about their like graveyard, right? Is like this failed projects. Like probably most of the devs I talk to have this like graveyard of shame where they're like, yeah, I don't know, I prototyped like I entered this game jam, I didn't finish it, I didn't submit, and I have this game that's like pretty far along, and I like it, but like I realized it was going to take 6 more months to finish, and the game jam only lasted a month, and it's like they have this kind of you put your head down, and you're like, man, this graveyard I've got. Workshop. That's the way to think about it, right? Is like you've got these useful things, like you can go back to that code base, you can still use it, and I think that like having a shell in your workshop is one of the most valuable things that you can possibly have. And
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you have more of a utility. It's probably not exactly what I'm talking about with the shell, where it's kind of more like this library. And it sounds to me like you've got a really full featured workshop where you've got all your pieces where you need them, and you can pull them in as you need them. That's great too. It's really like I don't care how you get there. It's just all about like not repeating the work you've already done and using your workshop as an actual workshop, right? Like the analogy I talked with my buddy Jeff. We used to have a podcast called Lostcast, so I talked to him for 7 years. So a lot of my language just comes from talking with him. But like when we went from graveyard to workshop, we were talking about like a robot, and the game that you want to make is like a robot, and you might have like a perfectly good arm, like a good robot arm, just sitting on your workshop, and you're like, oh hell yeah, I'm just gonna grab that, chunk it on there. You've already got your libraries with your rotation and your Nintendo Switch checker and all that. It's your helmet. Put that on, and before you know it, you've got like a full robot suit. Whereas, like, if you were to write all that again from scratch, it might take you twice as long. You might add 6 months to your development time. I think that these are all really important things for game devs to succeed, right? Because we do all this work, and like, it's sobering to think about. But the majority of the game dev work that I've done is either not shipped or has been like taken down. As I was talking earlier, like a lot of my games have been on embedded platforms, such as Play-Doh and things like that. Like Play-Doh still exists, but some of them don't even exist anymore, And like, it's almost like an iceberg. Like the part that you can see above the water is like, hey, oh, here's some games that Matt has actually shipped, and you can go play some of them still. Below that is this huge, dangerous, like just mountain of ice and stuff that I've built over the years. That I like to think of as a workshop. Like some of that's still usable, and definitely all of it has led to the experience that I have now that I can hopefully use to put more stuff on top, stuff above the water, stuff that can actually be fun to players and benefit the world,
Totally. Do you think that there is a, because I've been thinking about this a lot. Like a couple months ago, I started doing a deep dive into Sock Pop Collective and like their subscription model, and there's like Punk Cake Delicio, and they're doing a similar thing. And I really think it's interesting to follow these developers who are making very bite-sized games and trying to figure out like, you said earlier everybody should ship more games, and so in your estimation, what do you think is like the sweet spot for developing and releasing a game? Because I'm trying to figure out like one game a month is like not doable for most people, I think. But if you commit 5 years to making a game, then you need to make a lot of revenue to make up for that time investment. And so I don't know, if do you have a sort of mindset around like the sweet spot for time developing a game, or does that progress over time? That's kind of the mindset that I've had, where I'm like, I want to start smaller scoped and faster with development, and then as I release a couple titles, then I give myself more leeway to spend more time on games. But yeah, how do you think through that?
I struggle with that. I think it's the kind of thing where you can only know what that is once you've got that assembly line going. Like I would probably have a good answer for that once I've hit my third Valadria game, which like that's my plan. Like I want to get there, but like started the indie game company in 2022, no games yet. I can't give good advice on this right now because I know some things my gut tells me, but I don't have the experience to go look and see, well, this has worked for me, and therefore this data tells me that some good advice is here. I do think there's some general rules of thumb. Most of the devs who see our work and benefit from our game dev content and stuff should be thinking as small as possible. Even a year is way outside of what they should be thinking about. And it's really hard because we're here. We showed up in the first place because we were inspired by games that we love, like an Elder Scrolls game, one of the biggest games on the planet. Oh, I loved GTA 5, and now I want to make games. Oh no, like that took a team of 1,000 people 4 years to make, or whatever those numbers are, right? Games have a tendency to blow out of proportion so easily. The smallest idea that any of us have for like, I can barely stand to make this game because it's so tiny. that's the kind of game we should be making. And that threshold's hard to find because if it was a little bit simpler, I'd be like, what am I doing? Why do I even want to make? Like, I've made enough games in my career that I'm like a small game. It's difficult for a small game to satiate my appetite.
Yeah.
Because if it's so tiny, I'm just like, that was just like a little nibble. Like I want something bigger. I want, like, it's one of the reasons I made my tutorial package making big indie games is because I want like a meal. I want like a, I want to get a big game out there, but that's so dangerous because like we should not be spending years on these projects. I do think there's a lower threshold. So like if you're a bigger dev and you've done more than me in your career, I can't tell you what to do. And maybe 3 years on a game is a great idea for you. I don't know. I do think there's a lower end threshold of like, I posted an article in a newsletter on Valadria.com recently. Can you ship a full game in just a few months? And I don't know, because I haven't done that outside of the work I've done for other companies and stuff. But it talks about a lot of the ideas that you could leverage to ship a game in just a month or 2 or 3. And I feel like if you're looking for a sweet spot, probably around 3 months, which is tight. As you know, that's tight. Yeah. Like I can't ship Pixel Washer in 3 months, and I've been working on it for a long time. I can't do it. I need more time than that. Yeah. Maybe once I have the shell, and if I did the design work up front to know exactly what I'm building, and I was scoped it down to the point where I'm like, it's almost painful for me, where I'm like, oh, it's such a small game. Like I want to make more. I want to do more. My users are asking for these features, and I want these things, but like it's too big. Yeah. And going further than that even, I think that most of us are terrible at estimating how long games take to make. Probably to double or triple, we're off by that much. And so if you scope a game to where you think you could make it in a month, if you think you can make the game in a month, it'll probably take you 3. Mm-hmm. And then that's the sweet spot. So this is what I want to try. Like I gotta finish Pixel Washer, but like down the road, what I want to try is I want to try using a shell. So I'm already far ahead of the game. I've already got Steam integration and settings and everything. I want to design a game that I think will take a month to make. And then the idea will be that in 3 or 6 months, I might actually have that.
Yeah, exactly. I think so. That's so true.
That would be my suggestion. But I think, again, like, someone like Jonas Tyroller who's just cranking out games. I mean, even you, Thomas, like 2 games on Steam already. And like we started this current iteration of our careers with our indie game companies at similar times. What do you think?
I mean, it's, my first game, Tanks But No Tanks, was already, I had been working on it for, I don't even remember, about a year, but like very, very part-time, just like weekends or whatever, just casually, not even really understanding if I would make it a commercial game. But I did have like a good platform there already for when I went full-time working on it. And then my second game, Bridges and Docks, is more of a tool than a game. So I think that it is, and I made that game in about, it's hard because it was when my daughter was born and I took some time off. And so I think like just direct time-wise, I think I started and shipped it in 6 months. But I probably spent 3 on it. And it really is mostly just like an island generation tool, there's not like a lot of gamification to it. So I feel like there's caveats for both of those, but I am glad that I tried to keep the scope of both games very small, and now I'm trying to get to the point where I'm like, now I've done it, now I want to make something that is like fun, like something that's more enjoyable, that will appeal to more people and that I can be more proud of, as I'm trying to market it and stuff. So
have you hit that point where you've noticed your appetite has increased, where like another Bridges and Docks game with a very small scope would not satisfy your appetite, and you're like, I want more. I want like combat or like a campaign, like some kind of big macro game where you're like upgrades and all, like somewhere 100%. Players could get lost for. Isn't that so hard? Like we see everywhere, make small games, and I'm like, I want to, but also I'm so hungry and I'm so ambitious. And like, doesn't it sound fun to spend 3 or 5 years on a game? But like, I don't have that kind of runway. I do not.
Yeah, exactly.
That's such a hard balance.
I think the hunger has always been there for me, though. I think it was kind of like a fight to keep the scope of my first 2 games super small. And actually, Bridges and Docks was half of the game that I wanted to make. And my compromise was like, okay, I'll start making this more ambitious game by cutting it in half and selling the first part as a tool. But really, it's basically like an internal level designer that I exposed to players so that they can mess around with it because it's fun. And so that was kind of my justification for it.
You may have done something that I actually suggest this in my book in one of the later chapters. But oh hey, did I just open to it? Oh, I did. Look at that.
Wow.
Save it for the sequel.
Yeah.
And so I think that this is such a useful thing for just reducing that scope and like, you ever do this? You ever know you're going out to dinner and you know it's going to be, you're going to spend more than you want and you're going to hang out with friends and stuff, but like the food's going to be really good because it's a nice restaurant or whatever. And so you eat less for lunch or you eat less during the day.
Yeah.
You save your appetite. And I think that that's sort of like what Save It for the Sequel is because like when you're working on your game, just like the systems start to connect and you get all these ideas and players suggest stuff and you're like, oh, that's good. And it's so hard to not just shove all that in there, but we don't have the time for it. And so pretty much every single project I work on now, I have like a to-do list locally, and sometimes there's also a Trello board or a GitHub issues. It depends on the project, but I will almost always have a like sequels markdown file in my repository, and people will come out with me with ideas, or I'll come up with them myself, and I stick them in there. And some stuff too, I'll have in my to-do list, and I'll be like, you know what? I'm just going to take it, shove it in the sequel pile, and pretend like it doesn't exist. And like I would love to get to it, but I need to finish what's in front of me. And I think it's what it sounds like you did there, where you were like, I want to make this, but I have the time for this, so I'm going to cut it in half. And like, good for you. I mean, for every dev who launches a game, there's like 1,000 devs who are like, don't even have that one first Steam game yet. And they're like, even if you or I put a game on Steam and we're kind of dissatisfied with it, we're like, I wish it was bigger, I wish it sold better, I wish it was more marketable, or like whatever the complaints are, there's always people who are like, I just wish I had a game on Steam. And that's one of the things that can help you get there is like the save it for the sequel mentality, where you're just being brutal about like, you know what, if this game doesn't sell, that's fine. That's the expectation. That's what we should all go into, is like the game's probably not going to pay for itself, and like it's all about moving on to the next thing. But having that goal to shoot for of like the sequel is like, you know what, if it does sell enough to pay for its own bills, then I can get to that sequel list, and I've got a list of stuff. I've like, you can keep that momentum going, right?
Yeah.
You launch it, you get it out there, and then you're like, oh, I know what to do next because of the sequel list that helped me keep the scope down, but also motivates me to keep going. And like a sequel too, you've got your shell. I really hope anyone making a sequel is going to start with the code base that they already had, and that should be a much easier thing, is to begin with here, replace some graphics and stuff, but then like just start to add more features and whatever. Really smart move on your part. I think that's admirable.
Yeah, thank you. It seems like I was talking with Kevin Anderson, the developer of Paperclay. I don't know if you've been following him, but when I was chatting with him, he made this 3D platformer game with this cute paper cardboard aesthetic, and you play as a chicken, and he already had ideas for the third game in the series. He's like, I haven't even launched the first one, but I have like an ideas file for what the sequel is going to look like, and then the sequel after that. And I think that makes so much sense to have, and I like not making your current game your magnum opus, and like allowing your out of scope ideas to flood into, but having a spot to deposit them so that you feel like you are planting seeds for the future.
Yeah, again with Chris Zukowski, I talk about him a lot because I read his stuff, and he's just so spot on. The howtomarketagame.com fellow, brilliant guy, and he talked about how indies, especially, we have a tendency to want to innovate and experiment with genres. I know I do. There's like 7 genres of games that I want to make. RTS and tower defense and survival games and horror games and everything. And that's one of the hard things about sequels. It's like, probably best if it's the same genre. It's like, it's just like the previous game, but like +1. You just put super in front of it. It's like Mario Brothers. You're still jumping and running, but now you've got a cape, and now there's different monsters and stuff like that. Now there's a mount, but it's all kind of the same. And I think the indies struggle with that. And there's certain things I've noticed that like I think are superpowers because I see them so rarely. And the ability to stick to a genre is one of them because
Yeah.
your audience can follow you much better. Your code does already works and does the things it's supposed to. Your ideas, your pool of ideas to save it for the sequel and player feedback and stuff is ready to go. It's like it's no longer like if you change genres, a lot of that feedback is irrelevant. A lot of that code is not useful. It's so useful if and beneficial to us as devs if we can stick to that genre and like sequels, sure, or maybe even like you reskin it and like instead of a medieval fantasy now it's a sci-fi game, but it's like the exact same genre, same gameplay. You just add a new feature, brand new content, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if you that so that's a superpower. If you come across a dev who's like, I don't want to do anything but make puzzle games, or like I don't want to do anything but make Metroidvanias. Those are very big, but like something along those lines, like
Jake Burkett, he does solitaire games. I don't know if you follow him, but yeah,
I
he's
follow
yeah,
him very closely. Yeah.
yeah,
He's fascinating because all the advice is like, don't make puzzle games. And he's like, I'm going to make puzzle games for 20 years. What do you think
yeah,
about that?
exactly. Yep, yep,
And he makes it work. And also
yep.
his recent game, Forbidden Solitaire, is like already getting like way more traction than most of his games just based on
Yeah,
wish lists. And it's like his launch trailer, announcement trailer was really cool. They had like
those are really cool.
production value and stuff.
Yeah,
It can definitely work. And like, someone could look at Baltro as like a puzzle game, I guess.
hmm
I mean, it's definitely a solitaire type,
yeah,
right? And does gangbusters. So like, there's always the exceptions to like everybody says don't make a pixelated side-scrolling platformer, and then there's like survivorship bias, which is like, well, what about Celeste, or what
yeah,
about Dead Cells, or whatever? Like, you can always make anything work, and to be honest, sometimes going against the advice that you see is the way to go, especially as indies who can
hmm
move pretty fast and kind of do what we want.
yeah,
I saw recently someone said like by the time you see advice in a newsletter or a YouTube video, it's too late.
yeah,
The door is like already about to. You can maybe get your foot in there real fast, but like the advice is out there. Other people have already exploited that, and the door is closed. It's becoming a saturated market. Like by the time, like there was a brief period where I wanted to make a survivors vampire survivors style bullet hell game, and
yeah,
like I didn't even realize at the time, but like the wave had already, and I'm like, here I come. I'm like,
yeah,
I'm doing the slowest follow ever, and then I was like, oh, there it went. Maybe I should not do that.
yeah,
So yeah, sometimes puzzle games could be the way to go,
yeah. Could
even though
be.
everybody says don't do that, but like that might be
Yeah.
the reason you're able to thrive.
Yeah. And it just depends on, that might be really good advice for people who need to recoup, $3 million to make a profit. But if it's an indie, and you're aiming for much lower than that, then it's, you can probably make a side-scrolling pixel art platformer and make enough to make your next game, Who knows?
Yeah, none of us do.
Yeah.
That's the honest truth about it, right? It's like
Yeah.
those of us who even think that we do know don't know. And like the examples I gave, like Jonas Tyroller will say how he was wrong. Like here's advice I think is great, and then 6 months later, boy was I wrong about that.
Yeah.
And I mean the reality is all of us are just winging it, and most people who think they know exactly how things work are wrong. And like I don't know, I try to stay humble in that way because like I think it's hard where people like you and I give advice a lot. I get a lot of people contacting me asking for advice, Discord and Blue Sky and through my book and stuff. And like, I have advice to give, and I believe most of the advice that I give is good advice. But I don't know what I'm talking about.
hmm
You know, even people who are extremely successful. You'll see this too. A dev who like who are they? Introversion after they launched. Prison Architect, which boy was that a hit! Just
Yeah.
millions and millions of copies sold, and a pretty high priced game. They just made out like gangbusters. And their very next game, what was it called? Very different. Again, we talked about like indies jumping genres. It was not
hmm
another deep sim buildy crafty kind of game. It was like a very strange, weird looking like oh, I'm forgetting the name, but it bombed. It didn't meet any of their expectations, and like we don't know what we're doing, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
any of us. And
Yeah.
I think that's okay if you go into it just knowing that take the advice that you like and you think is useful for you. If I ever say something you don't agree with, just throw it out. Don't use my advice if you don't like it. Like only like I think the main reason to follow people like you and me is to get motivation and ideas that you can
Hmm.
adapt to make your own and be like, boy, were they wrong about that, but this was a good idea. Like that's
Totally.
really the name of the game. Like that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. It's hard to like motivation is a big one, and it's hard when you are working by yourself in your dark office or like in a corner somewhere on your laptop, and you're trying to like put this game out, but you like keep running into these code errors, and you're like, oh, I'm never gonna learn programming, and it's like stuff like that makes it really hard for like, the barrier of entry into game development has never been lower, and you can learn anything, and there's so much good content out there and how to and good tools and everything, but also it can be a lonely experience. And so, yeah, it is interesting. Motivation is like a big one for this kind of stuff.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah. And we were talking earlier about like sometimes you'll hit that like I don't feel motivated and it's hard to know if you're just not being disciplined enough and you need to
Hmm.
just do the work because that's the truth is we need to sometimes just shut up. I don't care, sit down, do it. I don't care if you're not in the mood. I don't care if you're not feeling great today. Like sometimes you need to just do the work. Other times your body, your brain, whatever is telling you this is not the right time or I'm a big believer in like your subconscious needs to solve some things before you're ready to like put ink to paper or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, motivation can be fleeting. um, Boy, is that a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's hard for me too because I talk to a lot of people who I guess can't relate to. I think you and I have this where it's like, well, I just make games. Like, if I have an evening free, like if my plans are canceled and like my wife's out of town or something, I'm probably working on a game. And
Yep.
like if I'm being smart about it, I'm probably working on my main project. But if it's like a Saturday and I'm like, I don't know, I got plenty of work done this week. What's it like using the Fold engine?
Yeah.
Let's find
Exactly.
out.
Yeah.
Like
Totally.
I just like experimenting with new tech and like I have an idea for a game that might fit into that little box there and like um, I know not everybody has that because like what you and I do for a living can be very boring to some people.
Hmm.
Like oh, I spent 3 hours fixing one bug.
Yeah.
Whew, that is dull. That is
Yeah.
dull. But like to you or me, that's like I was on a 3 hour hunt. I
Yeah.
got it done.
Exactly. It was an
I had my
investigation.
spear.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was running through the woods and I'm like, where'd that thing go? I'm gonna get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know not
Totally.
everybody has that, and like I don't know if you can force it or not, and like I don't know where it comes from, if it's just
Yeah.
deep in your bones or if it's something that we had to fight at to get to over the years. Like I don't know how you get there, but yeah, I see people struggle with motivation a lot.
Yeah.
Where oh, I've got this half baked game and I just don't know what to do next, and I just lost motivation, and I'm like, how do you think about that? I don't know. I guess like the time is gonna pass either way.
Yeah.
The gears are turning, the time's chugging. I think about this a lot. Is like, what do you want to have done by 2026? It's
Yeah.
2025 right now. The year's
Yeah.
more than half over. There's still months left. You're still alive. You're
Yep.
still able. You're still passionate. What do you want to get done? Because the time's coming. It's before you know it, it's gonna be 2030.
Yeah.
That's the reality. One day you and I are gonna be like, whoa, is it 2030? What do we get done? And that's the motivation for me a lot of times. Is I'm like, yeah, I could go work a job and make some money and do that. Or let's like, but like, where do I really want to be
Yeah.
in the next 4 or 5 years?
Yeah. And that's like a really powerful like mindset to hold on to get you through the times where you don't want to like do the mundane work and sit down and force yourself to do it. I recently read a book, not recently, like a year or two ago. It's on my shelf over here. I think it's called Willpower, and I was like, oh, great. Tell me how to have more willpower. That's what I want. Like more discipline. Like I want to be able to boss myself around. That would be great. How do I maximize that? I read the whole book, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some of the really good points, but the only thing that I remember about it is like if you eat a cookie, you will have way more willpower. It's like just like eat food. And it's like that like your body will like help you to like you'll have like the blood sugars and all of that, and it just makes a huge difference. And I was just thinking like, man, that's so true. Sometimes I will have like a bad day where I'm just like, I'm not getting anything done. I'm just getting like, and I'm not, making as much money as I want, or I can't get past this like bug, and I'm just like really down on myself, and I'm just like not feeling it. And then I'm like, but do I, what do I do? And then I'll take a nap. I'll just like lay down for 20 minutes and then I'll feel amazing. And I'm like, okay, let's go, you know? And it's so crazy how sometimes just our body and addressing those like very physical needs can help us in the mental game. Or like go for a walk, you know? Like sometimes they are like very serious mental hurdles that you have to get to. Sometimes they're like feel more spiritual, and sometimes they're like physical, and it's hard to discern those, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. I will notice sometimes I'm cranking, and then I'll take a break, and then I come back to the computer, and I'm like, ugh, why aren't I cranking? Or I
Yeah.
don't want to do this anymore. And it's sometimes you're totally right. It's as simple as like, I need to go have a sandwich. I need to take a break. Sometimes I go walk to the park. I spend an hour, just walk around for 3 miles. I come back, take a shower, and then I'm like, I can get back to the cranking. And we don't know a lot of times. Like I feel like our bodies are not good at telling us, like pretty good at telling us when we're hungry, things like that, but not as good at telling us if we're ready to do some work right now or if
Yeah.
we need a quick break. That's a really hard balance.
Yeah. Totally. Um, Man, we've been going for an hour and a half. That's awesome. Is
Oh
there?
wow.
I know. I might have started recording before. I don't remember when I started recording. How much of the intro conversation we had, but anyway, is there any other topics that you wanted to hit before we wrap things up?
Not really. I think we're good. I got to mention my book plenty of times, and I got to talk about
Yes.
Pixel Wash for a little bit. Those are my main things right now. Anything from your end?
No, I mean I'll be sure to leave links in the description so people can check out. I mean I'm gonna. I hope. Do you have like a? I'll just leave all the links. You got a bunch of stuff. You got your book, How to Make a Video Game All by Yourself. You've got Pixel Washer to wishlist on Steam. You've got your Valadria newsletter. You've got your Valadria YouTube channel. Anything else that you want in there? It's like a grab bag
Too
of
many
Matt
things.
Hackett.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
man. Yeah. I think the good news is it's all on Valadria.com. It's like that's a
yeah,
good. Yeah. That's for the email there, and you get links to my book and the games and everything.
yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, man, I really appreciate you taking the time. It's always awesome having a chat with you, and maybe we can do this again in the future.